Good evening. If you thought the rebuild was slow going in Christchurch City, spare a thought for New Brighton. It's been put in the too hard basket by the council for too long, frankly, so the people are taking charge. Tonight, can we rescue New Brighton? You might be surprised by the answer, and Lynched starts right now. Thanks for your company tonight. So, one of the hardest hit areas of Christchurch following the devastating earthquakes was New Brighton. Yet getting any cash from the council or government has been an uphill battle. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. So what can we do about it? Well, the Strategic Urban Rejuvenation Force, or SURF as they like to be called, headed by local businessman Tony Brooks, has been launched to try and change all that. To be fair, it's a tough project, with the aim of raising money from the public and private sector to revitalise the area. Think it's a time waster? Think again, because one significant project is already underway. More on that shortly, but SURF is serious about New Brighton. They've even produced a promotional video. Take a look at this.
There's a reason why we want to explore unleashing the potential of New Brighton. Our community has a well-established identity, strength, unity and ambition. We've got 24 kilometres of unparalleled coastal beauty in our city. We have a forest that has 780,000 active users per year, more golf courses per capita than anywhere else in Christchurch. The greatest migration on this planet occurs in our very own estuary. Active sports and recreation plays a dominant role in our day-to-day lives, from surfing to kiteboarding, skate parks to BMXing. New Brighton's future really is based around the place where the city comes to play. This is what we are looking to embrace. This is what we're looking to make a unique selling point for the coastal areas of Christchurch.
On Monday, 12th of May 2014, SURF launches a national and international fundraising campaign called Change Our World in 28 Days. Starting from zero, we are aiming to raise money that we will use to deal with social issues, build profitable and sustainable businesses, and implement a rejuvenation model that will see New Brighton go from last to first. We've found a way for communities to have a say in how their money is spent and to be directly involved in the decision-making process. We are rewriting the rulebook and taking the opportunity to not only create a better town, but a better society. For 28 days, this community will join together to change their world by raising enough money to put this town back on the map. We know it's a big job, but we've got an awesome plan, a great team, and a committed community. But we can't do it.
So, about that project I spoke of earlier, it's an apartment block planned for New Brighton's waterfront. They say is the first significant development in the suburb for 15 years. SURF, alongside the New Brighton Business and Landowners Association, says it's a 3-storey complex that'll be built on Bereford Street. Association manager Paul Zenon says this is the start of the economic rejuvenation, and he joins me now. Paul, welcome to Lynched.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
Very well, thanks. So you're quite serious about this. So this accommodation apartment could be the saviour, the start of something bigger.
Yeah, there is no silver bullet for New Brighton. It's something that's been explored so many times. It is a staged development process between public body and private industry. This is the first significant announcement to come out. It starts showing us that the economic potential is coming out in New Brighton. So the land prices haven't been artificially inflated like the CBD. They've been left to go on their own tangents. So it's starting to make sense to invest in the area. That's what we're seeing with this very first proposal off the rank.
So it really is quite significant. Actually, an investor wants to invest in New Brighton.
Yes, and it's only the first of many. In the last 14 months that the business and landowners have been established, we've started to see all those drastic changes come through in the commercial district of Brighton. So we've started to see property start being sold. We've started to see new investment capital move into the village.
Why has the government and the council let New Brighton go for so many years, do you think?
I think there's a misconception in today's day and age as well that we're expecting council and government to solve every single issue for us. Back in the day, if you wanted money for your rugby park, you would have gone out and fundraised like mad. You would have had the local community empowered to be part of that process. You weren't waiting for someone to consistently give something to you. There hasn't been an effective management structure or game plan in Brighton for a long period of time. There's been a lot of people identifying the issues, but there has to be that fundamental shift from issues to solutions.
It's fair to say that New Brighton, and when I say New Brighton at this point I'm meaning the mall, it died when the likes of Westfield, the Palms came along, didn't it?
Yep. And you see
Although even before that it was struggling then, wasn't it?
It's the loss of Saturday trading. That's when it needed to change. It needed to get its target demographic back in place. It lost what it had. All of a sudden it was a developer's dream for so many years, having that monopoly on trade. The malls have done this all around the country. They've done it around the world. What's been happening, you see places like Melbourne, the same thing, it killed their CBD, absolutely destroyed it with the infrastructure and malls moving in. What they've done though is enabled a 25-year game plan in Melbourne. It didn't magically happen. You know, parts of that were orchestrated and worked with community, with business and the local body governments as well. And that's exactly the model that we're using.
The problem you have there, if you compare with Melbourne, I mean, their population is far superior to Christchurch as will ever be.
Exactly. It's not cutting and pasting of Melbourne. New Brighton's got its own identity. Christchurch has its own identity. We're not cut and pasting the identity from different cultures into our city, but we're certainly embracing what we do have.
The trouble is, though, to be fair, Paul, the council has tried in the past, though, haven't they, with the pier, with the slow road through New Brighton Mall, which was supposed to be the saving grace, the library, but it still isn't enough. Why haven't those projects worked well for New Brighton?
I know this is going to sound incredibly boring. It's not the exciting sort of bit of news that everyone wants. Consistent management. It's that simple. The linkages from the pier to the commercial district were never enabled. Same with the road. It was so controversial. The execution of the job is lackluster as well. It's like driving into bunkers on those little side bits. So it's partnering it back into the commercial. 90% of New Brighton will be done by private industry. That's one thing. Everyone's waiting for public body works to come and be the saving grace.
Well, let's talk about surf then. Why will Paul Brooks and your organisation that you're part of with surf, why will that work when other projects have failed so miserably?
It's reactivating the community. You see that there was 40% of people in Christchurch bothered to vote in local body elections. They're looking at spending money on trying to identify why that is. It's because you don't have active participation. So what we're doing with this model is we're giving that power back to the community. Yes, it's a giant fundraising endeavour, and there's some serious good news going to be coming out of that, but it's also re-engaging the community in Brighton. 18,000 residents live there, 24,000 if you cast that net a wee bit further north. That's a massive amount of population of Christchurch.
I want to come back shortly and talk to you about surf, and you've got a campaign to try and raise funds from the public and private sector, so things are in the pipeline. But coming up, remember the whole water park idea? Whatever happened to that? We'll be right back. Welcome back. New Brighton Business and Landowners Association Manager Paul Zarnan is my guest. Paul, talk to me more about surf. So you've released this pretty dramatic looking campaign. You want to try and change New Brighton, or at least get the money for it in 28 days. Yes. How has this campaign gone for you so far? Have you raised some money?
It started to come in dribs and drabs. What we're starting to see though is all these businesses start to activate, not just in New Brighton but further abroad as well. We've got messages coming in from so many different people, from musicians, Lady Six, Shapeshifter, right through.
Well, I want to stop you there. We've got some photos up here right now I want to show you of New Brighton. This is New Brighton, of course, in the yesteryears. We're talking late 70s, early 80s. I mean, look at that. That was when New Brighton was once really humming. I remember this as a kid. I mean, this was obviously, I don't remember this. But there was a real great sense that New Brighton was a place to be. I mean, look at those people out there for performances and concerts. I remember Woolworths being there. I used to work at Countdown New Brighton as a kid. Can we recreate the past like this?
I think it's one of those things in Brighton. We have to acknowledge the past, what we did have, but moving further forward off that, it's looking at what we can now do. Everyone seems to think that the retail economic situation of Brighton is the only way forward. It's not just retailers, it's office space, it's living environments. There's so much more to it. The events calendar in Brighton is already really strong at the moment. We've got 3 events that crack over 20,000 people a year. That's huge. You know, every single event lining up like that. The future of Brighton isn't just retail. We need a lot more stabilisers in the economy. Going toe-to-toe with malls is not a good idea.
It's interesting you say that, because New Brighton sees a dramatic increase in its population, doesn't it, with the Guy Fawkes, the fireworks off the pier. It is the place to be in Christchurch. You're right, we do need to create more events. So how do you go about doing that? Because you still need cash, don't you?
Yes, exactly. There's got to be more support mechanisms moving forward as well, but it's not just waiting for handouts, it's how we as a community take these steps forward. That's part of what the surf campaign is as well. The amount of people in that community being activated is phenomenal. It's the same as the water park conversation. 20,000 people signed it. That's massive numbers. You know, it's reinforcing that as we move further forward.
What about seeking some advice, some assistance, some cash from Christchurch and Canterbury Tourism? I mean, they love to promote New Brighton with the pier, and the library always comes up in their imagery.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to Tim Hunter?
No, not Tim Hunter, but the 2IC, Caroline, I believe is her name. She came out to Brighton when we had the Amazing Places container out there at the start of the year, and would talk quite extensively about what offerings we've got in Brighton. At the moment, the best things to do in New Brighton are free. We've got beaches, piers, migration from the Godwits.
What was their response then? Oh yes, Paul, sounds nice, I'll get back to you, or what?
They want to be supportive, but they don't know how. So this is the hard part. It's the same with council, same with government. People want to be a part of this story, but they don't know how to engage effectively yet. With Canterbury Tourism, what we don't want to offer to tourism is to come out and see us down on our knees either, without having the support mechanisms for them to get involved. One of the campaigns that Surf is doing is to get tourism out there, to actually acknowledge the work that's being done and to get them to partner into it through the same as what happened with the pier. You know, buying those bricks, being able to have your name as a part of the history of the area.
It's a good idea. It's all very well to try and get some kind of anchor projects based in New Brighton. At the moment, residents are obviously very staunch about the area. I mean, I used to live in New Brighton. My first job was at Countdown New Brighton as a checkout chick. I love it. But I almost feel embarrassed for the backpackers out there, because the tourists come along there, and it's all very well to go to the beach and the pier and the library, but without them, there's nothing there.
Exactly. So
what do we do for them?
This is part of the picture moving forward. Every single case study that I've read internationally of an area that has a huge asset base but is looking for an economic rejuvenation, it starts with hospitality. So at the moment we've got 3 new cafes that have just come into the area. We're looking at how to increase that nightlife to give tourists something else to do. On top of that, we'd also explored the village and a water park concept last year as kind of the alternative to the water park in itself, spreading those different facilities around the area that people can actually engage with.
Now that's interesting, because I get confused with this. So we had David East's project, the water park, which seemed nice enough, salt pools, hydro slides, that kind of thing. Then we had this water park and a village idea, which is, as you say, is to create separate kind of anchor projects around New Brighton. Is the water park idea that Tim Sims and David East were thinking about, is that dead in the water? What is the latest with that?
What they had started with that is they went out with a concept. So they went out with the idea of the water park to say, hey look, we've lost QE2, what can we put back in its place that's really going to stimulate the local area? As a concept, it was just that. It wasn't any further than that. It needed to be explored further. So the council had already run those 2 reports last year that they commissioned to explore the water park and what that would mean for the area. They didn't come back as favourably as what people were hoping. So it's a very, very expensive project. The other part of that is that you've got a go-to project. So people would go there. The secondary spend off that was something like $3.50, because people go to this entity for a day and they're straight back out again. It would have brought visitors in, but they wouldn't have engaged with the local shopping district.
Well, that's a problem with saltwater pools as a separate entity. It's all very well to go to the saltwater pools, but the whole idea is to go elsewhere in New Brighton and spend that entertainment dollar there, but there isn't really much there to spend it on at the moment, to be fair. Is that a fair comment?
Not at the moment, but it is starting. This is the hardest part to explain to people. It's a 200,000 step process that we're going through. We're already well underway. We're already 20 months into the project. It's not like we're starting from scratch. Surf is the next stage of that evolution moving forward.
A priority for Surf is to install security cameras in the mall. The trouble I have with that is, that won't reduce crime though, and that's not going to get people back to New Brighton. So why is that seen as a priority on the Surf website, for example? One of the major things is getting cameras in there. Why?
One of the SURF proposals, the way that SURF works is basically it's going out for the fundraising. It's similar to what the government did with the Earthquake Appeal Trust, to get that pot of money and then to start identifying those projects that it would go towards. At the moment, those are what the professionals have said. Look, these are good little pathways forward. You know, the boat sheds concept, these sort of things are great ways to move the area forward. There is no definitive answer. The money that comes in for SURF is dictated by the community as well. One of the big things to come out from the community is safety and security. They are worried about it. It has been an issue in the past, but the social changes in Brighton is something that everyone's overlooked in the last 12 months as well. We went from 8 gang houses 12 months ago down to 1, and that's way out in the boondocks.
Well, that's good. Where's the gang houses go? Fendleton? Maribel. You've lost 50% of businesses in New Brighton, according to the press, in 4 years. Do you contribute that to the earthquakes, or to be fair, do you think some of these businesses would have left town before the quakes?
Both. It is honestly both. It is partially to do with the earthquakes, and it's partially to do with what's happened in Brighton for the last 30 years. It's not just earthquake-based issues that we're dealing with here.
Before we take a break, I want to talk about the buildings that remain there. Some of these ugly eyesore buildings. One there I can think of on the top of my head is the New Brighton Countdown Old Building next to the school, I think it is.
Yep.
That sits there like a derelict eyesore. It looks like a dump.
Yep.
It is just a magnet for youth crime and graffiti.
Yep.
Have you phoned up the building owner and said, can you please remove this bloody eyesore?
Yep.
And what has he or she said to you? And why the hell is it still there?
This is the hard part. We haven't got a complete dictatorship in New Zealand, as much as certain areas feels a wee bit like it. So we have to work with the property owners. For them, there's been many, many different issues in Brighton as to why it's in the state that it is. This is what we've been doing for the last 14 months. It's been all the boring legwork in the background to start cutting out the rot of the area.
Well, do you know, I mean, you're part of the Landowners Association. Do you know exactly what's happening to that building? Is it going to be, I mean, well, you could put a bowling alley down.
It will eventually go. As part of the rezoning for the master plan from the council as well, it actually retreats the commercial district off the estuary side, which is also a flood-prone area, and it pushes it towards the foreshore. So that'll go for a rezoning at the moment. Right adjacent to that site is also the Central Brighton School. That's another one to keep an eye on. That shuts at the end of the year. So the development options for that block are all currently being worked on.
I want to talk to you next about Labour's policy for New Brighton. It sounded good, but was it simply electioneering to vote by the East? That's next on Lynched. Welcome back to Lynched. New Brighton Business and Landowners Association Manager Paul Zarlin is my guest. Paul, we often talk about the whole notion of the community spirit in New Brighton. I think I can only think of Sumner as another area where there really is that community feel. But even on News Talk ZB, whenever I discuss the issues around New Brighton, as you know, people from all around of Canterbury have an opinion about what to do with New Brighton. For some reason, and me included, we've grown up there, we've been there, we've visited there, we know the area, we're passionate because we know the potential New Brighton has. Yep. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Look, it's what we're doing in Brighton at the moment is taking that potential and turning it into a reality. Everyone has an opinion, everyone is engaged into New Brighton as well. There's a passion in Christchurch to see the area move ahead. The grassroots movement in Brighton has been because it's felt like it's been so alone for so long. It's built up this community spirit. So as much as people perceive it as being a negative, what it has done is created this massive power base for the area that is truly that resilient cities that everyone's talking about. That's actually in place in Brighton.
New Brighton should be seen as the crown jewels of the city, shouldn't it? It should be our little slice of paradise. Sadly, it's not though, is it?
Not yet.
Will it be?
Yes.
How confident are you?
100%. More confident than the day that I first started the Business and Landowners Association.
Really?
And that's good news.
Why are you confident then? You must have something up your sleeve you know that the rest of Christchurch doesn't then.
Look,
because the apartment buildings is a good start.
It is a good start, and it's only the start. This is something that everyone has to acknowledge. We've got a very long game plan that's going to come out in Brighton. The significant changes are taking place right now. The big announcements coming out in the next month are going to blow Christchurch out of the water. It's going to be the most positive news story that Christchurch has seen since the earthquakes. This is part of our way forward. The big shifts that have to happen are all taking place.
Hang on a minute. You just made quite a powerful statement there. A big announcement will be made in a month or so.
Several big announcements, yeah.
Regarding the future of New Brighton. What, you're going to put the stadium and convention centre there?
Yeah, we've got the budgets for it.
Yeah. But it is positive.
It is very positive.
Can you give us a taste, a teaser?
No, it's just that at the moment, a teaser, but I think you're going to like it.
Well, I hope so. Tell me about the council communication you've had, because I know we've often spoken on the phone and on News Talk ZB. You've been back and forth with meetings. How have you found the last council? How have you found this council? What have you been speaking about? At one stage you were it was about the water park idea. Where are we at with the council?
With the council, there's been some fundamental shifts in council as well. The working relationships that we've had established with staff who are still there either side of the election, those have been going from strength to strength. Working with the planning and strategy staff has been going absolutely fantastically. There's a partnership in place between that governing body, between business and the community to move forward. So that's great news. When it comes to the elected members, yeah, there's been a big shuffle up, but we've got a very pro-Brighton council as well.
We do actually.
Very easy ways to engage. Vicky Buck was there. Leanne Dalziel, obviously, as the mayor, she was based out in Brighton. We've got Dave East, Glenn Livingston. Paul Lonsdale's been very, very useful to us in the last 24 months of establishing the Business Association as well. So we've got very, very good connections with council, and there is a big appetite there to move the area forward.
You want to move the area forward by, can you give us a taste? Are we talking facilities, anchor projects? Are we talking about beautifying the area? What do you think will work?
It's
the
mixture
best?
of those things. Look, the mayor has obviously brought up the Legacy project recently, and that's Brighton's equivalent to an anchor project. You know, some have sort of got the cycleway was their big hoorah. Brighton's looking for that same thing. As the mayor had said, you know, that point of difference, what makes this area move ahead. As I'd stated earlier though, public body works is only a portion of Brighton. That whole CBD district was privately owned.
I want to ask you, we're nearly out of time, but in terms of the recent floods, in terms of the Christchurch City Council's $500 million deficit, does that make you nervous that their priorities will once again be diverted away from New Brighton, or you don't give a damn because you've got some exciting projects coming up that's non-council or government related?
Look, the thing is, with the passion that's going into Brighton from the council as well, we know that they want to work with us in this long-term game plan for the area. And yes, there is budget deficits for the council. It's a very, very difficult time for the city. New Brighton is part of the whole city. We can't be expected to get beneficial handouts that the rest of the city isn't approved of as well. So it's got to be that kind of way forward for that. Sorry, what was the rest of that question?
I was going to ask, flooding didn't really happen in New Brighton. Can you capitalise on that at all?
It's one of those things in Brighton. Like with the estuary there, that's kind of the problem area, is that whole sort of westerly facing aspect of Brighton. When you look at the contour lines of Brighton, anything Marine Parade sitting about 3 metres above sea level. Anything towards the estuary, that's the danger zone. But what happens with a tidal estuary, that when it's king tides, we have significant issues. As soon as that tide drops, so does the water.
Only a couple of minutes left to go, 30 seconds in fact. Just briefly talk to me about SURF, put your message out there. It's an organisation that needs cash. Like, there are many people in Canterbury that I think care about New Brighton, and we realise the government and the council is not going to do anything. So what's your message to people? You've got a website, don't you?
Yes, we do. www.surfnewbrighton.co.nz. This is that grassroots movement that people are looking for. It's not just financial donations. We're looking for the networks to open up. Those people that are passionate, that have businesses, that have brains, that want to get involved. We've got our arms open to that.
I'll put your website on my Facebook page. That's facebook.com/lynchnz. Paul Zahn, appreciate your time. I do wish you all the very best. We'll get you back.
Cheers.
And I can't wait for these special announcements.
3 weeks.
You can either announce them on CTV or News Talk ZB. You can take your pick.
I will do.
No pressure. Thank you, Paul. Well, before we go, there's never been a more important time to ensure we're looking after each other. I mean that. That goes beyond a hug and the "how are you doing" question. It means actively engaging with our extended community by showing a willingness to make meaningful change in people's lives. And a new organisation I'm proud to be involved in, Mental Health and Advocacy Peer Support, I believe will achieve this. Recently I was asked to speak at their event on arts and entertainment in Christchurch. It is widely recognised that both encourage a healthier, more prosperous world. And I'm privileged to receive emails every day at News Talk ZB on events happening around our city. And it's these events I promote at the drop of a hat. Why? Because they give me hope that our city is still a good place to live. The earthquakes have taught me to appreciate our arts and entertainment scene more than ever before. I never used to get excited about events like Classical Sparks. The novelty wore off when I was a kid, but now I look forward to attending most of these types of events in the park because they give me a sense of what life was like before 2011. Our CBD has been locked off for so long, and despite my misgivings about what I've seen, you can't help but notice Christchurch's truly creative streak with slabs of colour popping up in sometimes the most ridiculous of places. Artists have taken advantage of the bare land, and the half-demolished buildings have provided a much-needed boost to the mental health of fellow citizens. I want to end by saying this. It is really important to acknowledge the heartache as people continue to battle with insurance, EQC and flooding issues. But it is these same people who are in need of entertainment. And thankfully, I know many of them are seeking refuge in our vibrant arts sector so they can escape the broken city just for a night. And that is our show. Thank you so much for joining me. Leanne Dalzell joins me on News Talks a bit tomorrow, but from me and all the CTV team, good night.